Oh yeah, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are, wherever your time zone is. This is your host, Maneza F8 of FKU. We're bringing you a special Youth Day episode because in South Africa today is the Youth Day, the 16th of June. On this day in 1976, the youth took it upon themselves to go and protest in the streets, complaining about being taught in Afrikaans and carrying passports going around. It was the time where South Africa was under the oppression of the white supremacists in a system that was called apartheid. So the youth took it upon themselves to go and protest. Men were killed, some were wounded, some became the heroes of today. So, what have you done for yourself as the youth? What have you done to make change to others? In order for you to celebrate this day properly, you need to dig deep and try to see and try to engage within yourself and find it in you to understand, what have I done to make change? What have I done to engage with other youth or other people of Africa and South Africa to make sure that your voice brings change or your actions brings change? Because the youth of that time was fighting for change, and the change came because of that. So we need to change now the scenarios, because one of the radical and the most important a person that died as a youth is the guy called Steve Biko. In his words, he said, the most important weapon in the hands of the oppressors is the mind of the oppressee. With that being said, the most important thing that we need to work on is the mind. It's the mind. The most important thing that the systematic racists did best is to change our mind and the perception of what we see each other as. Because if you work on someone's mind for too long, that person will start to believe that whatever I say, it is true because I worked on his or her mind. Now, let's look at it in this way. You go to school, they feed you the education that they want you to have, and they give you the scope of the life that you are supposed to have. Going to school, going to college, get your degree or diploma, become an intern in some company, and get a job in a company and buy yourself a car and get yourself in loans for cars, for houses, for clothes, for furniture, to feed your kids, to give the education that you got from them to your kids, and then that cycle continues. So now, when you are using your mind, you will understand that education system is not uplifting any of you and any of us into becoming their own bosses. We need the youth who are their own bosses, the youth who works for themselves, the youth that thinks outside the box. It's time now to change the narrative and start thinking outside the box as the youth, and start now thinking of going into the businesses, I'm not saying don't go to school, don't go to colleges and get those degrees. Education is important, whichever way that comes as. You can supplement that education with the real African education, with real sense of self-knowledge, and work on your mind as an African. There are many books that you can read that will construct your mind in a way of thinking as an African, because Africans don't beg, Africans don't work for no man. Africans got hands, work for themselves. It's an evident, if you come in South Africa, you see a lot of Africans from countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Ethiopia, Somalia. Most of those Africans, they don't work for white people. They work for themselves. They build their business from the ground, and what they do with those businesses succeed and start to drive those big cars, live in the mansions, while us South Africans are still living in those 2 rooms that we bought with loans, with the money that we made for the jobs that were structured for us. That time need to pass. We as Africans, we need to supplement that education with the real mind education. We need to connect to our spirituality as Africans and get to know what it is of being African, what it is that will push us as Africans forward. What will push us forward is to engaging with each other's businesses. We need to engage. We need to start trading, start to circulate money amongst each other. We need to plan. We need to strategize. We need to mobilize and execute. We need to plan, strategize, mobilize, and execute. What are those? Those are the plan of action that we need to do to make sure that our money is circling around each other as Africans. The youth of 1976 didn't die so you can go around bowling, buying 5 cars, wearing clothes from Germany, wearing clothes from Italy, while other Africans can do even better clothes than those. While Africans can create and design so many things, but you overlook them because they are made by black people. Because your education told you that in order for something to be authentic, it needs to come from a white man's warehouse, a white man's country, a white man's shop. It needs to be verified by them for it to be legitimate to you. You need to claim your own legitimacy. You need to decide what is legitimate. These guys who are like Amaxhosa in Joburg, who's creating an original fabric clothes that will take you years and years of wearing them because they are original texture and fabric. There are many guys I can talk about who are running their own businesses. There is a guy called Vusi Tembekwayo, who's a motivational speaker and a businessman, who's a very, very good entrepreneur. Those are the guys we need to look up to and search on how they are conducting their businesses so that you can reach the standard that they are living now. And stop looking at shops like Edgar's, Ackermans, and be inspired by those, because those they are systematically made for you to be a slave of. You can't look into working at Edgar's for the rest of your life. You can't look into working at ShopRite for the rest of your life. What will draw into working at ShopRite? You will be a tiller. You will start as a cleaner and pack shelf and be a tiller. That your highest position is those people who are being called to override the cards. Override, void, that will be your highest position. Or if you are lucky enough, you studied, you will become some sort of a branch manager or a store manager. That's it. That money you are making there will never buy you a mansion. You need to look into getting into entrepreneurial positions. You must be an entrepreneur in mind, entrepreneur in thinking. You must walk as an entrepreneur. You must talk as an entrepreneur so that you will get to know what it is to control your own money. Without saying too much, I like to say Happy Youth Day to all, and we condemn the abuse against women, because most of the youth in Africa is engaging in this killing of women. We are condemning that 100%. We don't want to hear about another victims from the hands of the youth, from the hands of the men. Men should refrain from beating up women, from killing women. We are tired of going to the TVs, watching the news and hear about another beautiful sister is being murdered by her boyfriend or her man or her husband. We are tired of going into TVs and watch those graphic pictures of women beaten to death, burned, tossed away in the fields or buried in the bushes. We don't want to hear any of that anymore. We are bashing that. We say no to women abuse, no to gender-based violence. This is not the way of Africans. This is not the way of how Africans work. We do not want to go again in a state where we need now to fight man versus woman. Woman needs to, in a way that now women need to go and get guns and stuff so that they can protect themselves. Now it's a war against men and black women. We say no to that. Happy Youth Day. Those youth that died, they didn't die in vain. Don't make their death in vain. Support the youth. Support everywhere. Please subscribe to the podcast and make sure that you watch this video this side of Muammar Gaddafi, and this video this side of the top 5 richest women in Africa. Fikiria kwa undani ndugu. Asante. Amaku.